one, I wanted to hop on and give you kind of the lowdown of the Wet n Wild foundation called Coverall. And it looks like this. It comes in a little squeeze tube. And I really do think this is a very interesting foundation, and I wanted to use it up like pretty much fully before I gave you my opinion, because this is one of those foundations where my opinion definitely changed over the course of the weeks of using this. And I'm probably one of the last ones on YouTube to do a review, because I know many people have reviewed it. But I just thought I would give you my 2 cents. And my shade that I picked up is in 817 Light. Now, this is the main problem that I have with this foundation, is there's not a lot of shades, or at least at my CVS is where I purchased it. There are not many shades. And that's such a bummer, because that can be crucial in finding out whether or not you're going to like a foundation or not. Because if you can't get the shade right, then unfortunately you just don't enjoy it as much. So to me, this foundation, the shade was too orange for my skin tone. But the shade below it, there was one shade below it, the shade below it in Fair looked very, very fair. And especially because I'm doing a little bit of self-tanning now, it was just way too light. So from the get-go, when I initially applied this foundation, I hated it. I thought, this is gross, it just is orange on my face, and I didn't really enjoy it. But I kept on keeping on, you know. I said I'm going to give it another go, and I used one of several tools. I would use a stippling brush and then go in with a regular foundation brush. And the way I like to apply this the most is with the e.l.f. powder brush. It's just like almost like really a Sigma F80. It's just like a flat top brush. And I like to swirl it on. So I try to blend out the foundation and make the shade work as much as possible. Now let's talk about coverage. The coverage of this foundation is actually a really, I would say medium to full. It really, the name suits it, Coverall. I feel like you really can get full coverage with this foundation, especially if you layer it. And let's see. It says it's a satin to matte finish. Now, I would agree with that as well. I do feel like when it actually dries, it does have a very like satiny, I wouldn't really say matte, but satiny kind of finish, which I really liked. But another problem that I had, it takes a while to dry. Initially when I first put it on, another thing that I hated besides the color was how it felt. It felt so tacky. Like whenever I first put it on, it almost has like a wet consistency. It feels very like creamy. I mean, it's a thick cream, but it's also very just like, I don't want to say sticky, but it doesn't dry really well. And so it feels a little tacky. But it does set, and I have to set mine with powder because I just felt like it kind of evened out the color and everything. But once I set it with powder, it does set, and when it does dry, it is kind of a pretty satin finish. But the more I used this foundation, the more I liked it. And I feel like if I had the perfect shade, I would love it. But unfortunately, the shade, I just really had to work with it because it's very like orangey on my complexion. Now in the winter, I might try the lighter one. But I do feel like coverage-wise, especially for your money, if you're short on funds and you need a cheap drugstore foundation, this is going to give you great coverage. If you need a foundation with high coverage, check this out. But I grew to love it the more I used it. And when I first tried it, I thought, ugh, like, it just was all wrong. And I think a lot of it had to do with the shade. So Wet n Wild, not that you're watching, but if you happen to be, expand your shades, because I do think that's going to play a big role in whether or not you're going to enjoy this foundation or not. You know, it's definitely not for those of you who like lightweight foundations or foundations that you can't feel on your face, because I do feel like, well, I don't think it doesn't feel heavy on your face, but it's definitely not like compared to some of the real liquidy foundations that are very light and airy. It's not one of those. This is definitely meant to be a high coverage. cream foundation. If you like the feel of cream foundations, it's definitely creamy. But I've pretty much like used most of this up. If you can see, I might could squeeze out a little bit, but let's see if I can get a little bit on my hands. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just a really like creamy consistency. And once you get it blended in, it's really nice. I mean, and it doesn't really feel heavy, but now like right now on my hand, it still feels wet. It kind of has that tacky, wet texture at first until really it takes a while to dry, but if you set it with powder, it'll set pretty quickly. Until I set it, it really still kind of feels tacky. And that's the only thing I really don't like, because if you're in a hurry, that's not necessarily I mean, it's great if you're in a hurry and you need high coverage, but it doesn't set quickly in order to move on to the next steps in your makeup. So sometimes that kind of bugged me. But it covers blemishes well. It really didn't set into fine lines and wrinkles. As far as how long it lasts, I feel like it's not a super high lasting, or it doesn't last like 10, 12 hours or anything like that. But I do feel like I would get like a good, like I would say 6 to 8 hours. I mean, just an average day out of it. Now I do put powder over mine always, like I said, and I do touch up throughout the day. So with powder. But other than that, that is all. That's all I'm going to say about this. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.